episode of the Mesmerise podcast. And today we have Rage Sadler from Kaine, who's indulging me once again in coming onto one of my podcasts. How are you doing, dude?
I'm good. How's things?
Lockdown. All the lockdowns. Now, keeping busy, trying to do whatever I can, music, podcasts, Twitch. Completely ignoring the fact that I'm locked in. Trying to make it into my own accord at this point. But
I don't have that luxury. I still want to go to work, regardless of lockdown.
I work in my pants most of the time. Just taking calls. I'm really pissed off. I'm so angry. Yeah, that's fine. Scratch his left ball sack. But
I still have to go to the office and things because I have to do hardware bits. As I'm doing IT and that kind of type of thing. So I can't repair a computer at home, unfortunately. I have to go in and program something.
Roombas? Have you suggested like Roombas with like little robot arms just to repair shit on the fly?
Well, then I'd put myself out of work, I think, if I started doing robots, because they could just pre-program it to do what I do. So, and I need money, so I'd have the luxury of setting up robots. I do some work from home, but I attend meetings from home, which is weird. In fact, I'm very used to video chat like this now. It seems to be the normal part of life is, video chatting people. It's pretty bizarre when you think about it. Having staff meetings in a video chat environment, it's not the same.
While someone's dog is just running around going crazy, biting its fucking leg.
Well, I've seen some strange stuff, especially when you've got like a wider meeting, because I'm part of a national organisation. You've got so many people on these things, and there's all kinds of things going on at the same time. And of course, they've got the people who don't put themselves on mute when others are talking, so you get the terrible sound. Or the people that just look like Tetris, because their connection's so poor, the screen just looks like Tetris. You don't know who the hell's talking or where.
And then you get to a point where you're like, is he still talking? It's frozen.
I'm
not sure if he's frozen. Is it him or me? Fuck.
It's usually them, I find. Yeah, it's quite funny when they sound like they're underwater and you can't see what's going on. It's like, what's happening? So, yeah, 21st century life has really come forward. We don't meet anymore.
No, like, what's the point of meeting now? You can just do this. It's fine.
Yeah, well, we can't get COVID through this, but I much preferred staff meetings when they were in person because I felt that they achieved more.
They do. I completely agree with you. I think everyone kind of ignores it at this point. It's like, I can barely fucking hear him anyway. Fine. I've got a guitar next to me. I'm just going to put myself on mute and just play a little bit. Done. Sorted.
I definitely haven't done that. I don't even know where my guitar is at this second. That's how I've not rehearsed for like, I'll say 3 weeks now. Maybe a month, I don't know.
I find I've actually been playing guitar a lot more in lockdown. Then again, we were recording and I was like, oh, my guitar playing's a bit shit. I think I need to do a bit more.
Yeah, it usually helps to practice. I should be practicing more. I normally practice a lot, but since we had to cancel rehearsals, it's just been depressing to even look at an instrument because I want to be getting on and rehearsing and recording albums and I can't. So the thought of picking a guitar up right now and playing through stuff I should be recording right now is demoralizing. The motivation isn't there this second, but I'll definitely pick it up and play it sometime.
That's
probably tomorrow. I've said that.
Completely understandable. We've not been able to rehearse at all. We were supposed to rehearse. I think it was meant to be like 3 days after the second lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to take photos with talent. We've had everything booked, everything was ready. It's like, oh, we're in lockdown now. Fuck! No! This is the first time I can rehearse since lockdown, for fuck's sake.
Well, you can still legally rehearse right now if you really wanted to, but you just have to go to a COVID-safe facility, like Pioneer Music or Card Trick, I think is another one that's COVID-safe. And obviously the council decides whether or not they're COVID-safe, so it's all regulated. It's the one that Osman Guillotine had the police called in on. Yeah, it's like, you can't legally rehearse it. Yeah, we can actually. Oh,
that's so petty, though. That's so fucking petty.
Yeah, it's people. So when you look at supermarkets, the amount of non-social distancing that happens there, and they're whinging about rock bands fucking playing together. A group of like 4 or 5 people at most in a safe environment. No, that's naughty, but packing into Tesco, that's absolutely fine. But Tesco's worth millions and we're not, so we don't have a say.
Exactly. I mean, my biggest pet peeve still is just people wearing the masks and then having it under their nose. It's like
Yeah.
it's defeating the fucking purpose.
Yesterday, on the way back home from work, the amount of people I live in a small town. We've got maybe 20,000 people where I live. It's not a big place. And there were hundreds of people out yesterday as I was leaving. They were on our local common. They were all queuing outside the kebab houses. Poor mask wearing, if any, and no social distancing. It's like, I wonder we're fucked because no one's like taking this seriously at all. I think because we've been going on with it so long now, people have just turned themselves off to it. They just assume it's just another load of bollocks. They don't really see the dangers of it. So,
oh yeah, because you've got so many anti-vax people as well at the moment. Which has just gotten silly. Like a lot of people that believe the conspiracy theories as well, like the fucking pigeons. The government's just replacing the batteries in the pigeons to spy on us and shit.
Yeah, oh god. There's a lot of, I call it information terrorism right now, right across the board, and you get all kinds of insane theories. One of the ones I saw this morning, I'd seen someone post just saying, "Oh, I'm looking forward to getting my vaccine," and this guy goes off on a whole rant about how this was it's the usual culprit, it's the Jews, and what they're doing is they're trying to depopulate humanity with the coronavirus so they can then assume complete control, and it was all invented in Israel and all this other stuff. And that's the type of crap that you just see. I've woken up and gone, what? Like, that is just next level. That's crazy, but
I can't commend that just through the sheer imagination behind that.
Well, someone's read it. What these people who, repeat these things don't understand is a lot of the time there's someone on a computer going, I'm going to come up with some bollocks and I'm just going to post it. I'm just going to see how far that gets shared. It is just some arsehole doing it for fun. And he's laughing at it. He's laughing at your conspiracy theory because he's made it up.
Wasn't there a thing with Woolworths a few months ago where it's like, Woolworths is opening back up?
Yeah, yeah.
No. And even the BBC wrote about it. It's like, no, it's not right. There's literally no background checks with any of this shit that you're posting.
No. When the BBC does it, it's pretty embarrassing considering they're meant to be the impartial, state-funded news service, and they will still post effectively that's fake news. And they've been caught out before. I'm not going to mention the particular article, but what they'd done is somebody on Facebook or Twitter, I don't know which one it was, had said something had happened. And then somebody had screenshotted that and sent it to the BBC as fact. But there's no video evidence, there's no written evidence. It was in a public place this incident was meant to have occurred in. And they just publicised it as fact. So everyone's sharing it around going, oh, this is fact. It's not. There was absolutely no facts. It was just something someone said on the internet. You can say anything on the internet as just proven. This is a depopulation myth or whatever.
So we should just keep on post like heavy metal is the most popular, most like just money making genre of all of them, and all the other genres don't make any money at all. Then it's fact, and then the people believe and actually buy shit. Let's do that.
That could well work, but there is a lot. We should say that the biggest fake news that you get with the metal media is that all new bands are shit and all old ones are brilliant. And they perpetuate that myth constantly. It's just the one thing they're always sharing. It's like, new bands can't live up to the standards of these old bands. But they forget back then, when record labels actually invested in bands, they had an opportunity to really rise to the top, where rock bands don't get that, broadly speaking, anymore. Like Ed Sheeran might get that type of investment, but a new rock or metal band's never getting that investment. And that's the reason why Ed Sheeran is popular and known, because he's had advertising and promotion and he appears on the mainstream TV. And the reason why another band without that push is it might be better, might be exceptional, but they're never going to hear it because it's never put out there. Because Iron Maiden is brilliant, Kiss is brilliant, Black Sabbath is brilliant, AC/DC is brilliant, but anything after that is a load of crap. You don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, but then you've got the boomer gatekeeping at that point.
Yeah.
That's basically all it is. It's like, Iron Maiden's amazing. They are. Don't get me wrong. They're a great band. I mean, I'm sure you agree with that. I mean, your band's quite
You've gone.
your band's quite sorry, for some reason I can't English today. It's very close to Maiden in regards to inspiration.
Mhm.
You thought
Yeah.
you thought I was going to take the piss. No, but
Yeah.
no, but generally there are some amazing rock and metal bands out there. They just don't get the backup that they should do for the kind of material they release. They have the fan bases, they have the people that would support them. It's just labels don't put
Well,
their
the majors won't
yeah.
touch it. The ones that actually have the money, like Sony and whoever else, they won't touch rock or metal. Really, let's be honest. And the labels that do, have that specific genre, like a nuclear blast or whatever else, they're not really able to invest because they don't have a whole lot of resources themselves. They can pick maybe 2 or 3 of their bigger bands and use them as their flagship, and they might have a few medium ones underneath, and they'll sign on a chance a couple of the smaller ones. But they don't have a huge amount of resources. I mean, Earache I can sort of commend because they signed Massive Wagons.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, and they've made a success of them. Well, they were a success anyway, but you know what I mean? They've been able to push them to that next level. But they've been around, a similar length of time as my band, so it's not like it happened overnight. And a lot of labels are not interested in the groundwork. They look at the profit at the end of the day. They want to be making this much money and this quickly. And if they don't get it, then they're not fucking interested. And it's a fact of life.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be in a rock or metal band now, you have to accept the fact that you're not going to be signed by a major label. And if you are, you've done extremely well. That's the truth.
Very lucky.
Well, luck is something, but I think you've done well for yourself if you've been signed by anyone that size, and it is difficult to get signed. It is, and I know there's different routes of going about it. Because I know a local musician who did get signed by a very big label, but to do that, he had to completely change his sound, his look, his direction, and who he was playing with. He gave up on the rock and metal thing and started doing something else. And he did very well briefly. He did exceptionally well. The problem that he had is the scene was very bitter about the fact that he had this success and instantly turned on him. Like, he was slagged off and whatever. It was pretty embarrassing. I think that's a problem we have in this country is whenever somebody gets some level of success, everyone wants to bury him. They want to say, oh, they're the worst person ever, or they just changed their sound. They just want to get famous. Well, he may well have done. But he wanted to make a career in music, so he asked the label, what do I need to do? And they said, this is what we're after at the moment. So he went and did it. I don't blame him. It's his band had been around.
You have to compromise in some position, depending on what path you take.
Well, he'd been around 2 or 3 years, decided that doing the local gig circuit wasn't for him, I think, and wanted to do something else. I don't blame him. It's a hard grind trying to do it the way that the rest of us do it. And he just went to the label I'm talking about, which are one of the big ones. They said, this is what we're after. He went and did it, and he had a degree of success. It didn't maintain itself, and that band no longer exists. He's in some other band now. But the point is, it depends, because people were like burying him, saying, oh, he didn't put the work in, gave up on his sound. But if he wanted to be signed as a musician and performing live at the type of festivals and events he was doing, he did everything he wanted to do and needed to do to make that happen. I don't think you should be bitter about that. You should go, well done, you've done it. That's exceptional, And if you want to do that, you can do the same thing. Well, again, you do need some luck, but not for me, that type of thing, because obviously my sound's what I play. Yeah. If you don't like it, then fair enough. I don't really care about being famous, or making money out of this. I have a job. That's what makes me money at the moment until I'm unemployed again. But it depends what you're looking at, really. And labels, the big ones, have the money to put into artists. That's why the ones that we go cringe at and go, oh, that's terrible. I don't know who's popular at the moment. Is Stormzy still popular?
I think so. I think like rock metal wise, Five Finger Death Punch comes to mind, but that's like.
Oh, they've been around for ages though. They're basically old man music now. But
Von Fleet. Like, I've never heard a song of theirs. They're like the Led Zeppelin carbon copy band.
Are they? I thought that was the girl that Donald Trump was round with on Twitter, but Um, I have listened to a bit of Greta Van Fleet. It's okay. It's not my deal. I like heavier stuff than that, and I like thrash metal and.
Yeah, but like that's why I find it quite respectable from the way you're wording it as well. You say you don't like it, rather than when a lot of people like rock and metal, genuinely will go shit. I don't like it. Shit. Like it's not shit. Enough people like it for it to objectively not be shit. You just don't like it, so just say you don't like it rather than say it's shit because it just makes you look like an ass.
Well, it's like the band Ghost. That's a band that divides opinion, but that's in terms of the rock and metal sphere. That's one of the I say new ones because the singer's been about for years in various guises, so it wasn't an overnight success like they make it out to be. But a lot of people hate that band.
Oh yeah,
they rip a Scooby Doo metal and ABBA with distortion and all the other stuff. And to be honest, I won't say I listened to that opinion to begin with, but I looked at it and went. I saw the costumes. I saw people's comments going, that's probably not for me. So I didn't listen to it for a long time. And then Steve-O were in a car and he's like, have you actually listened to Ghost? It's like, well, no, the people from my scene, let's say, don't like it. So I made the assumption that I wouldn't like it. He put the first album on. I rather liked it. So, and I've since seen them live and met Tobias Forge and all the other stuff. So, it does go to show that negative opinions on the internet do have a wider influence sometimes, because it even influenced me. And I'm not. When I was younger, I used to be more ignorant and go, "Oh, unless it's fucking thrash metal and the wobbling, I'm not fucking interested." And then as I got older, I'd listen to more stuff, and I wouldn't discount it. I didn't used to even like death metal. I wouldn't even go, a lot of death metal. I go, oh, but then as I got older, I listened to a lot more death metal.
But. That's fantastic. I mean, yes, okay, Ghost does look a bit like Scooby-Doo monster tribute. I think Tobias knows that. I'm sure he does.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
Like the Misfits look like shit. I'm wearing a Misfits t-shirt right now. They don't... they look like shit, let's be honest. It's grown men in cosplay. But it gets people in. People look at it.
Like it. It looks... In reality, it's... I remember watching a documentary years ago, and you had Bruce Dickinson, Judas Priest, Rob Halford, sorry.
Yeah, he's the whole band now.
Mr. Judas Priest. Dee Snider, so basically all the legacy guys. And I think Bruce and Rob were both saying like how inspired they were by opera, because they would wear costumes and make quite a big stage, would always want a big stage show. And that's something that I find always quite interesting. Like Ghost is one of the few bands one of the recent bands that has taken that and turned it into a show. And I think that's something that a lot of bands tend to not forget, but they don't want to go towards that. It's always like, oh, it's a show. I'm an entertainer. I'm here to entertain people. A lot of rock and metal musicians want to be in position of, I want to play music and make money from it. Great, but that's not going to happen. That's like 1 in a million where it might happen. It's a show. You're there to entertain people. If you have something visual to give, great. If not, then you need to do something that doesn't, like a band like Airborne, as an example, like just getting banned from download being one of the things that you can do. But it's interesting how people try to just be so negative about certain things, like Nickelback as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Like the joke of Nickelback's this. Like, it's so old, just fucking stop. It's cringe.
Well, what's interesting about Nickelback as a point there is because obviously I'm old enough to have lived through when they suddenly came out of, I say out of nowhere because they'd had stuff out. What's the album with the famous one with the eyeball on it and Silver Side something? That's
Silver Side.
Yeah. Everyone had that fucking album in 2000 or whatever, the 99 or whatever the fuck it was. Everyone bought it. Yeah. I owned it. Yeah. Wasn't a massive fan of it, but people back then there wasn't a whole internet thing, and you look in the charts. Oh, that's doing well. Everyone bought it, and everyone knew the songs off the album. And then obviously they got popular. I think maybe the next album or whichever had that Rockstar song, which I don't like. On that became the kicked them off to the stratosphere, and they got really popular after that. And then that's when I noticed that everyone just suddenly turned on it. Oh, this is a load of shit. they're not bad. It's not it's not really my thing. There were worse bands around at that time than Nickelback. There still are. But it's like Slipknot's another one. I'm not hugely into Slipknot, but they've got a gimmick, that worked for them, the scarecrow masks and all the other stuff. And they've built up a loyal following over the years. They've got a great stage show. And, as part of that new metal movement, they're one of the better bands from that. And again, I'm into other stuff, but they're a good band. They've got a gimmick. But if that band appeared on our local scene right now and they're wearing the mask and that, everyone would laugh at them. They would tell them they're a bunch of.
Oh, I wear face paint and I get people take the piss.
I've seen the comments.
Legion of Doom, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen your performances. I mean, what you're doing is totally different from everyone else, so it stands out. People are talking about it, whereas if you're a bunch of guys with t-shirts on and jeans, people don't talk about you. That's the truth. Oh, yeah. People take the piss out of us because we don't have sleeves on. It's like, oh yeah, they've got to have no sleeves. Who they think they are? It's like, well, people are talking about it. Skinny jeans and no sleeves equals people talk about it.
That's a really weird thing to pick on, though. There's plenty of bands that don't wear sleeves.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where you have something so simple, skinny jeans and no sleeves makes you a cunt.
might be the lack of, might be lack of testicles at that point, just because you got to tuck it behind.
Well,
you got to buff a bit.
I've actually ripped so many fucking pairs of skinny jeans on stage while playing. I've gone through I'm talking about hundreds of pairs because I did the old guitar power stance, and the next thing I know, I hear that, and I'm like, okay, I've just got to pretend this hasn't happened. Fortunately, I am wearing underwear, so my balls aren't going to fall out on stage. But yeah, that's happened many, many times. So, yeah, it's one of those things. If you have a gimmick, you get ripped out of, and you've got to live with it.
Oh yeah.
And our gimmick wasn't even my invention. We had a band manager. I wrote a song called Monument about that whole scenario, but he looked at us and said, "You look like a bunch of fucking uncles. You can't wear glasses on stage because no one will sign you. You can't have sleeves on stage because no one will sign you, and your jeans aren't tight enough." And so we changed to the look we still have to this day. To be honest, as stupid as it sounds and as petty as it sounds, we started getting better bookings as a result of looking like that than we did as a bunch of uncles.
Is it snowing where you are?
What's that?
Is it snowing behind you?
Yeah. Okay. I live in fucking Narnia. It snows all the time up here.
I live by the seafront. I'd love to see actual snow. I miss snow.
Yeah. So, I'm up in sort of northwest Essex, so I'm right on the border of Cambridgeshire, and it's just Suffolk on the other side, and then we've got Hertfordshire slightly further.
I'm genuinely jealous. But you're completely right. Like, there's no point of bands just going up with jeans and just a t-shirt, like another banjo or whatever. You need a certain look. You don't have. No, I'm not saying have costumes. You don't need to do the whole Lordy war thing. But having a certain look or something that makes you stick out a little bit helps.
Well, can you imagine if someone did Lordy on the local scene? Can you imagine like the Sound House or whatever, and everyone's dressed up, and it'd be fucking hilarious. I'd watch that.
I'd love it. I mean, you've got someone like Cunt in the Gang as an example. The guy wears a shit wig. It's clearly a fake wig. He sticks out.
Yeah. Shit wigs are a good theme right now, anyway, because a shit wig will take you to the presidencies of some countries.
Ooh, we're going there, aren't we?
Well. If that is his hair, I'd be impressed.
Do you think Donald and Boris that they have like joint custody of that wig?
I think that's interesting. I think Trump's is. I don't want to say more orange, but it is. But as Trump says, he was never orange. He's in peach.
Oh, all the peachiness. Oh, okay. One sec. I need to turn you down a bit. There we go.
Am I too loud?
No, it's me. I'm messing around with the mic settings and it's deciding to be a bit of a knob. But what were we saying? Yeah. Uh, sorry, I'm having a moment.
It's okay. We weren't talking about anything serious. We were making fun of wigs and people who wear them to the top.
I should wear
Maybe that's
them.
what I need. I need a wig to replace this one. I think that's.
Yeah, but you have hair. I don't. I tried growing my hair out again during lockdown. Thought, oh, maybe it's gone thicker again. No, it's still patchy and shit. And I haven't got 10 grand for a hair replacement, so fuck it. I'm staying
Well,
bald.
you know what that is that when you produce testosterone, it produces a byproduct which for some reason sits on top of the head. And obviously men produce a lot of testosterone, and some men are just more susceptible to because what that does is miniaturize your hairs.
Yeah.
So that testosterone is actually effectively, or the deposit, I forget what it's actually called, is actually miniaturizing the hairs in the head. So it means you're more manly if you're bald, I guess. It means you've got more
That's
testosterone.
the thing, right? Like from here on the sides, grows perfectly nice and thick. Lovely bit of hair. Top, no.
Yeah.
It's like, I get hair,
this...
it's patchy and shit. It's just like, nah, fuck it. I'll just go look like Steve Austin. Never watched wrestling. Never watched a wrestling match in my entire life. Just constantly gonna get compared to wrestlers. Fine, I'll live with that. That's my life story.
It's not bad one to get compared to. Yeah, I might watch a bit of wrestling from time to time. All the time. It's funny how the male biology works that way. Because it's just one of those things. It's a shitter that you're the one that's ended up with the hereditary baldness or the deposits in your head and making you bald. But
my dad's got long hair. That's the thing that winds me up the most. Like that guy's still got long hair, and I'm just like, I look like a penis. Thanks.
Well, it's inherited through the mother's side.
I actually asked the GP that once, just out of curiosity, and he said apparently that's complete bollocks and that's just an old wives' tale. But
I think there's some truth to it because I know, like, if you know people who have gone, I had a mate who went bald very young, maybe 20, 21, so a really, really young time to go bald. And his father had a full head of hair, but his grandfather on his mother's side had thinning hair. So there may be some truth to that. I know it's anecdotal. I know it's just me pointing out something that I've seen, but knows.
Yeah, but
again, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
No, I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, I'm glad that I look like a giant penis with a little bit of tash. I mean, I can grow a beard, so that's a plus side. But on that note, since we have been talking a lot of bollocks at this point, let's go to something a bit more serious and actually something more closer to heart. Kaine. So, Kaine is a new wave of British heavy metal band, correct?
Well, ish. Because obviously the new wave of British heavy metal is like from 1975 to 1982 or whatever. But we're inspired by that movement in that sense. They call us traditional metal, whatever else, revival metal, new wave of legendary speed metal, all that shit.
But we have to use genres for the nice people at the magazines and the reviews so they can pigeonhole everyone.
You could, no album is as close as you can get without getting wet.
With because you guys have actually released quite a bit of music relatively recently, re-releasing a lot of stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've done a collector's edition of our last album. It's purely where we decided that we're going to change our CD supplier and we were going to do a lot more with physical goods or merch because obviously if people buy it now, we want it to be a real collector's piece. So it's now super jewel cases. I don't know if you remember them. They're a thing the music industry launched to save the CD. It didn't work, but there's tons of them around. Lyric book, replicated CDs as opposed to duplicate, which is a better quality of CD. So we decided to go with that, and I thought, well, we'd done an EP prior, so last year as well, the Waystone EP, which was meant to be a 5-year celebration of our album, The Waystone, which is our top-selling album. It sold a lot of copies.
Yeah, like you guys don't even have copies of that anymore, do you?
No, it's completely sold out. So we had planned this EP for the 5 years. It came out of the 6 years because of the world ending. So, and with that, we did a lot more backing vocals than we had done on Reforged to Steel the year previous. And we recorded a lot of these with Talon. So we decided, well, we're putting out a new version of the album. Why not mix up a few of the tracks. So there's an extended version of one of the tracks and added more backing vocals that were on the original, give it a light remix, and then it's just a bit different. So somebody already owns Reforged Still in the original format, they can buy this and they're going to get some bonus tracks and just a different album, different feel. A lot of people like this version because it had the feedback on the backing vocals from the previous EP was that it was better than just hearing my voice. So even Talon even performs some of those backing vocals. He does a lot of the harmonies and stuff. He's much better at that than I am. So
he's got quite a high range as well, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he's got a very good range. He's very good at harmonies. He's clever at working them out on where they should be. So he's been quite helpful in that regard. So he worked with us on both of those releases, the EP and Force of Steel 2. So yeah, those are the two most recent releases. Oh, and we did a live album last year, which Talon also.
I saw that. I saw that Mohawk guy by the mixing desk. It's like, oh look, that's Talon. Oh look, all these people I know.
Yeah. It's how incestuous the Essex music scene is. We all fucking know each other. Like you can't escape. You either know me or James Balcom.
Oh yeah, definite. That's the thing though. I find there's a very definite split between the southern and the northern side of Essex.
Yeah,
it's like you guys get a lot of the southern bands come through, but you guys can't come down here because a lot of the venues won't play won't have any bands on down from outside of the general area, which is just.
That's because we all have a different accent where we're from. I mean, all people down south
get snow. We just don't. I think that's probably all it is.
Welcome to Narnia. Yeah. They hear our accents, go, they're a bunch of fucking farmers, because everyone down like your way and fucking Grays and all that sounds like fucking. Was it The Only Way Is Essex, or whatever else that I call it? Mockney, because it's like a fake version of Cockney. To be fair, lad, I can't understand you either.
But so with that, what physical albums, EPs, vinyls do you guys still have available at the moment?
We've got still a lot of A Crisis of Faith from the lineup previous. We've got a ton of vinyl. They're like a purple collector's vinyl. From that, we've got a few of the EU CDs because we've got to deal with a German record label who they sell our stuff in Europe, and they send us CDs to sell here as part of the deal. And I've got a handful of those left. A lot of the UK ones I've still got. We've got a couple of the live albums from that lineup. We did a live album with that lineup. It's a handful of those left. So there's lots of those things. There's a lot of Reforged Still, but the previous two albums, our first two albums, are completely sold out at the moment. But I may well do collector's versions of those depending on the demand and the cost, because that CD, collector CD, cost me over $1,000 to put together, and somebody who's not wealthy, that's a lot of dough. It's a lot of Patreon money. Patreon as well. We've got a Patreon for £1 a month. You get a T-shirt and a patch with new tiers incoming, which are going to be equally good deals. I hope it's all about value for money for your fans. So.
Exactly, and I was about to mention that with the Patreon, because I think you're one of the only bands, one of the very few bands in the UK that actually uses Patreon as well.
Yeah, I think us and Twisted Illusion. Yeah. The Twisted Illusion use it quite heavily. They're more into it than we are. The way I look at it is that rehearsals cost a bit. So if it pays for a couple of rehearsals a month, that's fine. It's not money coming out of my pocket. And that helps us support the band. And then as a thank you for that ongoing income, you get a T-shirt and a patch for £1 a month. I mean, that's the sort of money UNICEF asks for, isn't it? It's UNICEF or the British Red Cross or Médecins Sans Frontières and all the other people that are advertising constantly for £1 a month. Well, for £1 a month, you can save me from paying for band practice.
But that's fantastic that you guys have been able to find that way around, because as you're well aware, most bands are struggling with the whole digitization of everything. It's interesting to see, because most bands try and go the traditional route of, we're going to make a record, then we'll get a label. It's like, no, it's not how it works. Jumping back onto my conversation with Mark from last week. He himself said he constantly gets the question of from younger bands like, "Oh, how do I make it into the music industry? How do I break through?" And now this is a guy whose band did very well in the late 90s to the late 2000s. He said,
Mhm.
"I have no fucking idea. The playing field has changed so much. There's no way I can advise you on that. There's no way I can help you here."
I think the best suggestion I can make to any young band is get people you're happy to play with in your band who are hardworking and are loyal to the project, have the right personality mix for you. Don't rush to release music. Make sure when you do release music and record it, it's of a good standard. Make sure your artwork is to a good standard. Make sure everything looks professional. Keep your social media professional. Your personal social media, like your profiles, try and keep your personal, political, religious affiliations away from it, because the minute you open your mouth one way or the other, you upset 50%.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Any political or religious opinion will upset 50% of people, because there's that very clear left-right split in society. So don't open your mouth about politics. Some labels like it. They push those types of bands. But if you're at this level and you're really relying on, you're trying to find, say, your first 100 loyal fans who will subscribe to a Patreon, don't go on the internet and slag off X person.
Just don't slag people off. It's just not necessary, really.
No, but I like it. Yeah. Like, for example, the current Prime Minister gets a pretty hard time on Facebook, and I see a lot of local bands posting about him, and maybe he deserves it. I'm not going to comment one way or another. But if you keep that side of it away, I mean, our drummer Liam can be quite bad for this. He'll post all kinds of shit about politics on his Facebook, and that's why no one likes him. But that joking aside, Liam's pretty level-headed, so he's not one of these. He's not unreasonable on either side of the fence. But that type of thing will alienate X amount of people, regardless. If you think, "Oh, I believe in this," or "I don't want these people to support me," well, they might have a slightly different view on you. And if you were to have a conversation in the pub with these people and speak, calmly and logically, you probably have middle ground in some areas, and they'll take a different view, and you'll take a different view on it. That's life. Everyone has different views, but I think on the internet, this stuff gets ramped up to the anger levels that it does. People are slagging each other off in the comment section.
But politics has become the same as a fucking sports team. It's like, "Oh, my team's better than yours." It's just gone silly. Like my middle ground, personally, my ground with politics is just don't trust any politician. They're all going to lie to you in some way or another to try and.
They just want your vote, ultimately.
Of course they are.
They're not going to, a lot of the stuff they say when they're going to, the election time, they'll say all these different things. The minute they get into office, none of it happens. It just disappears. "Oh, we looked at the budget, we can't afford it," or "There's some directive from somewhere that says we can't. We're really sorry." They knew that beforehand. They fucking knew.
It's a joke. The entire thing is a joke because someone wants to be right, so just don't. You're going to be wrong sometime down the road, and you're not going to be able to take being wrong. Because we're not perfect. People aren't perfect. People are going to have different opinions. Generally speaking, when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of politics, everyone just wants to have a nice life. Everyone wants to have enough food on the table. Everyone wants to be able to spoil themselves now and again. Everyone would like a holiday once or twice a year. That's as a generalisation. That's what most people want. Whether you're left, whether you're right, whether you believe in lizards, whether you believe in
the depopulation myth,
exactly, and so on and so forth. So it's in all fairness, the internet ramps it up more, like feminism as an example, because everyone has the idea of feminists are all these women who have got like bright red hair and wear glasses and scream at you. It's like, no, that's like two people. That's maybe like 5 people that you constantly see on the internet because they shout a lot.
The squeaky wheel gets the grease, though. That's the problem with all these things, is that the louder these people are, they're the ones that get noticed. It's the same with the other side of the fence. A lot of those people get noticed because they're the ones screaming all the time.
Exactly. It's just a general idea of it. It's just silly. But as you said, there's no unless your band or act or film, whatever art you do.
The gimmick is like Rage Against the Machine, for example.
Yeah.
They would be pointless without a political message. But I'm just saying, if you're starting out at the very bottom, just don't get into those types of arguments, and don't get into arguments with the scene either. I made this mistake when I first came along. I thought, this was wrong, that was wrong, and I was probably right, but I just upset people. I destroyed a lot of the myths for people that you could just go and do something like that without paying to play it or whatever else, and it upset people. And I don't know why, but it did, and I argue through my teeth. But I should have just shut up.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Musicians are sensitive creatures. We're a sensitive race. We like to, not race, sorry, breed. Let me get that right. Otherwise, I'm going to get into trouble somewhere. So, what do you mean you're a race? But generally speaking, musicians we like to get upset about things because we have a very set of beliefs that we like to think of. Like, oh, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that. And then when someone tells you, no, it's not like that, we like to kick a shitstorm about it.
Mm-hmm. So I did think about, on terms of the local scene, you think about how many bands, musicians and friends that you and I will both mutually know for the scene. So we're talking about, well over 1,000 people. If every one of those people that you and I knew bought an album from every band, that the better known ones, not about the ones
not the ones that had just started in rehearsals and played 5 gigs down.
That would be a micro economy. It would start a micro economy, because we're talking about how many people there are to back these bands, and there's tons. Obviously, not everyone does it, but that's just an example of where, as a scene, you can build each other by doing something so simple as doing that. And an album is a tenner. It's not, you're not changing the world, and you're only going to have to buy, maybe 3 or 4 of those a year. Still works out cheaper than a brand new computer game, isn't it? Which is what, 60 quid these days. So
I think the problem. I mean, most of the people that we talk about are also musicians.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, when it comes to that, I think what a lot of musicians tend to have, and it's just coming from some. I'm not entirely sure where it comes from exactly. I think it's some kind of precognitive conditioning in some capacity, which is they're also musicians. They're the competition. They're not. Like as a very crude example, you and I, we're not competition. You do, you do metal music. I do electronic rock metal music. Nothing. Completely different people. So, but for some reason, people seem to think, oh, I need to compete with them. I need to win. I need to do. It's like, no, there's absolutely no point. Just support each other. I joined a group 2 years. I think it's about 2 years ago now. The Essex Bands United group. Sounds like a football team, but the general idea was actually quite nice, which was bands from Essex try and support each other. So go to each other's gigs, share around events, share around releases, etc., and just generally support each other. Because in Southend we have about 3 main venues. We've got Chinnery's, we've got the Railway Hotel, and we've got the venue. So that's not a lot of different places, really. And that's all within an immediate area. However, everyone says, oh, we're on board, we'll do this, we'll do that. So yeah, fantastic. In practice, it didn't work out because most people weren't interested or whatever, because everyone thinks they're competition with each other. Which is a sad state of affairs, really, because that's not really how it is at all.
Well, if you take us and Osmond Guillotine for an example, going back, obviously we've been around 12, 13 years. Before we turned up, that was very much the attitude. You had a handful of bands that had been around for ages, and musicians, and they looked at both of us as like taking their spot, and they were getting almost actively annoyed that people were coming to watch us because they were the musicians in Essex. They were the ones on the scene. We didn't know them personally beforehand. We didn't go to school with them. They're, a few years older than us, and there was they took it really. They were really offended by the fact that we existed and still are to this day. And where that attitude comes from, I don't know. It's just a very strange mindset to have. Obviously, not all bands are going to get along, but equally, as I said, and as you were saying with the idea that everyone just turns up, even if it's a small town or a bigger town in Southend's case, if people just turned up to everyone's gigs, you'd end up with a full night every night. Then you get these people go, well, I'm a musician, I don't have to do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, but then they don't have to support you either, and then nobody wins nothing, and, well done. You're the king of a pile of shit.
Yeah, king shit, as they say.
The other thing that we always try and stay right to the end of the gig, we watch all the bands where we can. We stay right to the end of the gig, and I've been laughed at for saying, why the fuck are you? You're the entertainment. You should leave as soon as you played, sort of thing. And from it's stupid because when obviously you want to make connections with other bands because you can book gigs together, you want to be polite and make connections with a promoter because he's going to book you or she will book you again. But equally, if your merch stand is out there all night, if someone's got 10, 20 quid left in their pocket after the gig's finished and you're the only merch stand there, you will make the lion's share of the merch money. I know that because I've done it. And all I had to do is stand there.
Yeah.
You ever been paid £100 for just standing still by a table? I have. That's all I had to do. I had to listen to bands and stand by a table for a night, and I got paid for it.
Yeah,
because I bothered. But no, you go home, pack up and go and fuck off. I'll have the money. It doesn't worry me. I'll take the money.
Like in a very basic manner, bands are traveling salesmen. To make it really, really basic. Like, it baffles me. It genuinely baffles me when, at this level, you can't afford to have someone stand there and do it for you. You got to do it yourself. You're the merch girl. But sorry, I'm just trying to throw like all these like, maybe everyone should get breast implants, but fine. But it baffles me when you're standing there. You're like, okay, I'm just going to sit here, wait for someone to possibly come by, etc. And it's the last band's playing, and you see the other bands packing up all their shit and their merch table and everything. It's like, why? No, you wait until everyone is fucked off out of the place. Not
Well, it's counter. It's like it's like a market salesperson. If the market stalls, they turn up first thing in the morning, they set a stall out, they're selling vegetables or they're selling fish or jewelry or knockoff Adidas tracksuits, whatever it is the person's selling. They turn up first thing in the morning and they stay pretty much all day. And there's a ton of other people out there trying to sell stuff, and obviously it attracts the consumers who then spend their money. That's exactly what you're doing when you play a gig. You're playing a show, but you're also there to sell stuff. You're there to take your market stall, sell your CDs, your T-shirts, your vinyls, your trinkets, whatever you got. Because you're lucky to get petrol for a gig.
Yeah.
Unless you can draw people out and make ticket money. Not a lot of bands can. So let's say you get your petrol money. Okay, so you're at cost neutral. Right, you want to make a profit. Well, then you sell a CD, you're in profit. But if you sell 5 CDs, you've got even more money. And a T-shirt and whatever else. It's got your name on it, so the person goes home and actually remembers who the fuck you were. Because most of us don't have backdrops. So they look at... It drives me mad when gigs are promoted with just a load of logos that no one knows.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, like, in your case, electronic dance metal, whatever you want to call it. Euro metal, Eurobeat metal. What would you describe yourself as?
Oh, God. To make it simple, I just say industrial metal at this point.
Industrial metal.
It just makes
people understand. People understand what that is. But if I was going to promote you, I would put that at the top of the poster. Industrial metal, influenced by such. The band name, and then underneath it, the supports. So the people that don't know who the fuck you are, which will be the large majority of people, in the same way no one knows who fucking my band is, will go, oh, I like those bands. I like that style of music. I'm going to go and watch that gig. I didn't know we even had that scene going on in this town. You look at the Eddie Kaine poster, heavy metal at the top. That's the first thing I put on. Heavy metal gig. What, we have heavy metal in Colchester? Yes we do. We've got fuck tons of it. Come and see it. But they don't. They'll stick a fucking load of band names, some of which you can't read, on a black pack poster event, £3.
Yeah. Exactly.
What
You're
event
not
is it?
going to get. You barely even know their fucking bands.
No.
There could be tributes.
What event is it? What's happening? Is this a seance?
It's people don't know how to advertise, and everyone seems to think that Facebook is the perfect place to advertise. That Facebook is terrible for that because it charges you far too much. Secondly, not everyone's on Facebook constantly, and
No.
the system
It's
doesn't
good.
work like it did.
It's good if you've got some coin to do a targeted ad. So for you probably do like Rammstein is the perfect example. The only one I would, people would know, make that connection. As like me and Iron Maiden, you'd make that connection. So they would target it at that, and then the fans of that band will go, "Oh, there's something going on." It does work because we've used it.
Yeah,
Bands in Town is a good one because it allows you to have followers, and it notifies you notifies them whenever you're in their town.
and as well with it connects to Spotify, doesn't it? If I'm remembering the right one, yeah.
And the good thing about that is London in particular, where there's like a shit ton of venues near people's London gig goers are on Bands in Town. The amount of times I said, "Oh, I didn't know you were playing tonight, but Bands in Town sent me a notification, so I came along," because it's a walk, just a short walk or two to the venue. So that's another good one you can use to kind of bring people out. But yeah, it's madness that we are as a scene shit at advertising. We're shit at actually promoting what it is that we're trying to do.
But we also don't really have any avenues to advertise either. Like you used to have, like back in the good old days, you used to have advertising boards. Like this is going on, that's going on.
Yeah.
That. Yes, as not economically, nature and shit. You create a lot of waste by doing so. A lot of waste of paper, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But a system like Facebook or Instagram or anything digital like that, it's not good. It's not good enough. That's the simple fact of it. But if you're advertising something like a product, like a CD, merch, kind of stuff like that, as you said, targeted ads, it works. Gigs, I find it kind of. I've tried to use targeted ads for that, and it doesn't really work the same way.
The way I have it set up is the 10-year show. I really did use Facebook ads to promote that, but I did it over many months.
Yeah.
So it got much more of a blow up, and I spent a fair chunk on advertising for that. It all came cost neutral in the end, so it was good. We got enough ticket sales in, and we sold enough merch of the night to make it break even. But that was specific targeting of specific genres, and again making heavy metal the main selling point to the wider audience, because although the handful of people that know who we are will come in because it's our 10-year show, the majority of people just want to see a metal gig. So we were able to have the draw of the 10-year plus the people who wanted to see a metal gig at the Art Centre, although they do regular metal gigs at the Art Centre and they put on some bigger bands. A lot of people still don't see it. They just don't know. And it's like, oh, wow, there's a venue in Colchester. And so it all depends. I think the venues help as well. If you've got a good venue that people will look at and go, oh, that looks cool. It's not a dirty old pub. And I think that is a big problem we have. And something I banged on to team about is that as fun as it is to play pubs, for the gig goer, it's not a safe, clean environment for them to enjoy music in. That's you and I put up with it, but there are a percentage of people who want to go to a venue like the Art Centre in Colchester or the Waterfront in Norwich or somewhere like that and actually feel it's clean, it's safe, and they can just enjoy the music without having, the problems that pubs bring, which is, the alcoholics.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind immediately to me, like for someone like you and me to go to a pub, fine, absolutely no issue. But second, you've got like a goth or an alternative girl going to a place like that. She's going to get hounded. She's going to get harassed. 9 times out of 10, she's definitely going to get harassed. She might love your band, she might like my band, she might like all this entire genre, but she doesn't want to go out because you've got Phil from fucking Clacton with his fucking Guinness in his hand, staring at your tits, telling you, "Oh, I love, I'm going to slap you in the arse." And
that is I had a conversation just this week with a friend who'd come to a gig in, I want to say Cambridge or somewhere, and she's off that goth scene. Supports a number of local bands, and said there was people harassing her the whole night. And I just said to her, if you get any trouble with that again at any of my gigs, tell me straight away and I'll get it dealt with. So I don't want anyone to feel that way at one of our shows, and certainly you're going to get less chance of that happening at a venue like the Art Centre or wherever than you are down the Dog and Duck with Phil from Clacton. I don't know what he's done, but he deserves it. Or people like that who are leering and we've had it all. I can honestly say we've had every type of person possible at Kaine gigs, and we've seen a degree of strangeness from various people. So yeah, it's not cool. You want people to feel safe, and that's going to be a priority of mine whenever we can legally play gigs again. Whichever directive we need, or which microchip we need to make gigs happen, I'm happy for it. I've got to kick off a load of people there. I've already had the injection. I've had it twice already, and I've only voted conservative 14 times since I've been injected, so I've done pretty well. Shame that there's no election on for me to vote. I just keep going to the polling station and trying to cross the Tory box. I'm going to set off all the conspiracy theorists with that bullshit right there.
The spray paints the wall with your vote.
Yeah.
Rage Sadler was here. This is my vote. Put it onto all the ballots.
Yeah, just. Well, I did have a letter saying, "Do you want to renew your postal vote?" And the other day, I was thinking, well, surely I'd ask you to do that. Fucking, I don't understand it. Because I thought at first, do I have to renew this? Because it's meant to roll over automatically, and then I get one on the post. So I'll get my microchip put in, and then I'll vote. So I'll vote the right way this time.
So yeah, you voted correct. You've done everything right, but I can see you've done it with ink. You're supposed to do it with blood, your own blood, so we know it's you.
Well, given all the arguing in America over what's real and isn't real, that's one way to certify, isn't it? If everyone has their physical DNA on the ballot, you can actually register that vote to each person individually. That's probably the future. Then it's legal then. But I digress quite horribly there. What was I talking about? Microchipping gigs.
Yes,
once we get back to gigs,
things we like, things we enjoy, things that
make
us happy.
Not microchipping. Once we get back to gigs, safety, good sound, good venue, good environment, working with good people, positive experience. No more of the crap of before. I played enough places where there've been bottles of piss knocking about. I'm done with it. At 35 years old, I'm done with it. I'm just done with it now.
That's fair though. Like, there's no point in playing a place like as you said, like the Swan and Pedo, where you've got 5 people coming along. You've got 5 people who don't give a shit.
Play that pub now, just to see what happens in the Swan and Pedo. Oh dear.
There's a washing machine right in the middle of the pub. So when someone comes in, like, holy shit, there's a washing machine. I need a drink. Fuck's sake, sorry. I've digressed so horribly.
You've digressed as well, but yeah, the point is, it's going to be. I'm hoping that when we come back to this, it's going to be positive, and we're going to have a bubbling scene, and it's about doing things differently. And the way I look at it in terms of the competition, if you've got 3 bands on a bill, like again, I'll go back to the 10-year show, but we had 3 bands on the bill that we know that pretty much those people, as a collective, like. People liked Bride for a Fremen, they liked Osmond Guillotine, they liked us. So it was 3 times the draw, because you're more likely to go and see 3 bands or 2 bands you like than 1. And especially if you see those bands on the same bill, well, I know those 3 bands, they're all good, that looks like a good night, it's a good venue, people are going to come out. And it's about...
That's the other problem I find with a lot of gigs, though. It's the mismatch of bands they put together. So it's like, you've got an indie band, you've got a metal band, then you've got... I don't know, like a drum and bass band or whatever.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. It doesn't work.
Work.
Like, we're going to get all these different people in. It's like, no, because one of them's going to watch and then the other one's not going to be there, so on and so forth. Someone's going to be put off because it's not going to be worth their time and money.
No, and the way you can, the mixed genre stuff I've never got. It's never worked for me. The last kind of mixed genre gig we played, as soon as the band that brought all the people had finished, their entire audience left with them. And it was sad because there was a band who'd really travelled from somewhere in the northwest, I think, to play that gig, and they ended up playing to no one, and we ended up playing to no one. But that's what happens when you do those sort of things. Whereas if you focus it, or the kind of bands are similar and they have a similar following and people like it, you put it on, everyone's going to be reasonably happy. And you can build bands up the way that you pick 3 bands that are popular, and you do various towns in Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, Cambridgeshire, London, Hertfordshire, the sort of immediate surrounds to us. And then you can then introduce another band. Maybe it's a younger band, and if they're any good or whatever else, they then pick up a following, and it just builds and builds. And you can do it that way, and we have done it that way. I think the problem that's happened over the last 2 years is the Essex scene has become quite disjointed. I don't think things like, I know you've performed it, things like Metal to the Masses help, because that creates the whole competitive atmosphere, and there was a lot of fallout and upset with various people.
I did have a phone call from someone. I'm not gonna mention name, of course. That person got so upset, saying, like, "Oh, I don't want to do music anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done." So, and on one hand, it's like, okay, but you do need to grow a thicker skin then if you're getting upset over not doing that. And secondly, if it's not for you, you calm down, please. I get you're upset, but you can't have everything.
No, and it is just a battle of the bands at the end of the day. And playing Bloodstock isn't going to make or break you either way. There's plenty of people that play Bloodstock and have never done anything else. I'm not saying don't do it if that's what you want to do.
But
and
that's not going to give you everything on a silver platter. It might give you opportunities, definitely. And if you can keep up with the momentum, fantastic. But it's not your golden ticket.
No. We played Hard Rock Hell Metal 2018, and that was at the Birmingham O2. It was sold out. Huge crowd. And then, weeks later, we're playing the B2 in Norwich. That's just how it is. It just the night before. No, I said, like, on the Friday night we played a pub in Hertfordshire, which was reasonably packed. There was with Titan, Satan's Empire, and there was another band. They were a sort of doomy progressive band that I've only ever seen once. So that's why I can't remember who they were, because it's the only time I ever see them play. So we played that. That was a reasonably well attended gig. Then Saturday we had off, but we rehearsed. And then Sunday we then played Birmingham O2, and that was in front of thousands. So it's quite kind of weird going from small and then huge and then small again. It's a bit like when we toured with Mordred, in that we played the Golden Fleece in Chelmsford, where the toilets had overflown that day, and there's piss and shit literally draining out into the venue in front of 5 people, and then the next thing we know, we're on a ferry to Ireland. And we're playing all these sort of big O2 venues with Mordred. It's just like, and then immediately after that, we're then playing Scruffy Murphy's in Birmingham again, which is a smaller venue. It was smaller back then. It's just weird contrast. So you might well get an opportunity to play Bloodstock or tour or whatever else. It doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to get signed and the world's going to change in front of your very eyes, because as somebody who's been there and done it, it doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's the thing. It also to be on the other side, it also doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't happen. That playing Bloodstock might be that time. Like, oh great, I've hit all the right boxes and I've managed to catapult myself in that manner. But also
someone might see it and think that's the best thing they've ever seen.
I mean, our first gig was at Metal to the Masses. Like, that was my first ever proper gig. We didn't get through. I didn't get upset. Yeah, it would have been nice to get through. No, I got to play in front of a great crowd, big, full venue, and I got to debut songs that me and the band have written. I mean, I couldn't. There's no way I could possibly ask for more than that. I mean, I've definitely had a much better start than a lot of bands did.
I mean, we've played a few Metal to the Masses gigs over the years, and we always got the lowest points and the lowest votes and whatever else. It's one of those things. I think there was a thing called the Surface Festival years and years ago, and I think we had the lowest rating in the history of any band that played that festival. Lowest rating. But has it harmed us in the long run? No, it hasn't. We're never going to play Bloodstock, but that doesn't worry me. It just isn't register on the radar. My personal goals are if I can still play venues like the Art Centre, if I can play the Waterfront in Norwich and maybe the Junction in Cambridge and venues like that. We've done football stadiums, we've done festivals. If I can keep that up, I played with bands I've absolutely worshipped. Obviously not the god tier bands. I haven't played with Metallica, but I have played with Diamond Head. that's happened, and it just happened through hard work. And I'm privileged to have had that opportunity. And if that can continue, then I'm happy. And if suddenly someone goes, you know what, 20 years down the line, these guys have actually worked really hard. I think we're gonna book them at last and put them on the big stuff, and I'll be, a 50-something-year-old man, and so be it. But
yeah, but then it really depends on where you get. I mean, you do work really hard, and I do. I generally have quite a lot of respect for you as a person, specifically from the fact of, what happened with, the whole lineup change as an example. I mean, I can guarantee that most people have just been like, "Fuck it, I'm just not going to bother doing it anymore." You persisted, and you've got a great lineup into the band.
Well, I think there was. I'm not a deeply religious person, as you probably have well guessed, but there was some sort of divine intervention with that, because, as you say, I had the entire band quit on me after an album for their own reasons. There's nothing personal there.
Right.
It happened, and it happened for the best for everyone. Fair enough. No hard feelings. I love all those guys. It happened, and I had 2 weeks to get a band together. Now, I'd already known Liam, the drummer, from years back, and I'd already called him and said, look, there's an opportunity, I'd like you in the band. And he was, yeah, absolutely, because obviously he knew the material, he was a friend, so he was the natural choice. But in terms of the guitar player and the bass player, I hadn't, I'd started talking to a few people I knew, but I didn't know who I was going to have. So I had actually typed out the, I've done my best, but I'm sorry I can't continue anymore. I took that speech had been typed out.
Yeah.
So that's how close it came to ending. The problem I had is I just released an album, so I've got hundreds of CDs, hundreds of vinyl, and a ton of gig obligations. I mean, the guys from the previous lineup did say they'd fulfill all those if necessary, but I was keen to have like a clean break. So there was a few gigs where it was a transitional thing, where we had some of the older members coming in between as we were training the new ones. But the morning of the announcement that Steve-O and Saxon had gone, I had a message from Toby saying, I'd like to try out for you. And I was just like, so I woke up first in the morning, a bit pissed off at the live see it, and go, you free Saturday? He's like, absolutely. Can you try out Saturday? Yeah, sure. I gave him a list of the songs. And then Saturday comes around. We start playing with him. He doesn't play a fucking note to begin with. And obviously Liam's already in the band at this point, so we're playing. I'm looking at Liam, and Liam's looking back at me going, oh, fucking hell. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm either going to have to call Anthony, the previous guitar player, up to get him back in the band, because I can't go for another 50 practice sessions with people who don't learn the stuff. Because back in the day, and I'm sure you're aware of it, there's a lot of people who don't fucking learn the music, try out for bands, and completely waste your time. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to go back to this. I just can't be arsed with it anymore. So he stood there with guitar in his hand, doesn't play a note. We finished the first song, and he was just like, oh, I was just watching. I'll join in now. So we played the song again. He was watching Saxon just to see what he was playing. And then he just played it perfect, and then did a solo, and then goes, and we're just like, okay. And then for the rest of the rehearsal, he's playing it, more or less perfect. Bearing in mind, he's never played with us before.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. That was important. It's really important to me. I want to play with good people. I don't want to play with people with huge egos or, so he seemed like a good fit personality-wise with me and Liam, which is what a huge, sometimes you will take a player who's maybe not the best in the world to begin with, but if they've got the right personality. In Toby's case, he had the personality and he could play. So we're thinking, bloody hell, we've lucked out. We finished the session. Joined the band, absolutely. So he joins the band, and just as we finish up, we go, you don't happen to know anyone who plays bass? He goes, oh, one of my mates, Isaac, he plays bass. And it turned out he and Isaac had played in Canon together for a number of years and knew each other reasonably well. Can you do next week? Next Saturday? Oh, yeah. Sure. So next Saturday, we meet up. Isaac comes in. Similar situation. He plays the stuff through just fine. Good bass player. Nice guy. Do you want to join the band? Yes. And then that month, we had our first gig with the new lineup, and it just went from there on. but it was good because Toby and Isaac knew each other, so there was no awkwardness. Like they were friends. I and Liam knew each other, so that helped the whole bedding of the band as a friendship as well as a musical partnership.
So everyone's coming in almost equal ground, so to speak. Like it's not like you've got three guys who know each other, and then you've got that one newbie who's just going to feel awkward the entire time.
Yeah. Well, the reason why we had what we're like Steve-O previously is we knew Steve-O played in the band with Chris called Drop Dead Fred. They were kind of like a grunge band, and we knew and liked Steve-O. So when Dan wanted to retire from Kaine, because he'd been in the band 5-6 years, Steve-O was the first one we asked, and he came. He just fat in like that because obviously we knew him, and we knew Saxon before he came in the band as well. So we've been lucky, and obviously I knew Liam.
But isn't that such a great position? Like, it's a shame that what happened, people leaving and such. But in some way, that must feel quite great that, the second that you need someone, not the second, but, the moment that you need someone, there are people that are willing to come to you to do that. I'm sure, like, 10 years ago or so, it might have been a struggle to try and find people because, like, you're now spending 4 months trying to find a guitarist.
It was a fucking nightmare. And we had many, many awkward rehearsal sessions with people who hadn't bothered to learn the stuff. And it took an absolute age. We, between our first album and our formation, our first album, we'd gone through 3 lead guitarists already. By our second album, we'd been through 3 lead guitarists and 2 drummers, and so on. I think Toby's like the 5th or 6th lead guitarist we've had now. Liam's the 3rd drummer. Isaac's the 3rd bass player we've had. So, and each one of those bands is different. It's like a separate band, but this version of Kaine is its own thing. But I immediately went to task as soon as the lineup was together of just writing a new album. Unfortunately, the guys didn't have as much say on this album as they're having on the one we're writing at the moment, because I just thought, we've got to prove we're still alive. We just released Crisis of Faith. I'm going to write a new album. So I sat down in this very desk here and wrote the 8 songs that ended up on Reforged of Steel and taught them to the guys as we're gigging and learning the other stuff as well. So we gradually introduced them. And then that year, so November of 2018, we started recording the new album. So we'd formed in May and we'd already started recording the album in November. And then we recorded the rest of it throughout 2019 and released it in October 2019. It should have been released earlier, but life.
And again, that's also fantastic. Again, going back onto positions, what's fantastic with that as well is the fact that the guys also accepted, like, okay, Rage is going to write this, but we're going to do more next time. Which I know a lot of as we said previously, musicians are a very sensitive breed. So say, what do you mean I can't write? Oh, I'm going to be really upset because I don't have that much say in the record. And I know a lot of musicians would kick a shit about it because, yeah.
I think although I put the songs together and the lyrics were mine, obviously I didn't dictate to Liam, you got to play it this way, or I didn't dictate to Isaac, you got to play the bass this way. Toby had a degree of freedom of what he wrote some riffs on the album. He added his own flair to them. He wrote all of his own solos. So there was a degree of, they could do their own stuff with it. Yeah. So there was, and it was good, I think, because they learned how I worked. It was really good to learn how I work and how I write and how this band writes and records stuff. It was a good process to go through because now they know. So when we did the Waystone EP, we essentially did the same thing again because obviously that stuff was written by a previous lineup. We took it, we learned it together because I hadn't played it for a number of years anyway, and revised it and put it down on the anniversary EP. And then with this new album, we've got about 20 songs between us all, and we got up to about 8 or 9 before we had to close down this section of rehearsals and writing sessions due to the COVID risk. And the only reason we're not rehearsing and recording is because we have a couple of people in our immediate circle who are at severe risk of, this new strain of COVID could kill them. So we don't want to put anyone at risk. As much as I'd like to be able to, go and finish an album, we don't want to kill anyone. So it will be done when it's done. But I consider it, whatever divine being or entity that enabled all of those things to happen the way they did, I'm very thankful to it because I don't know how it happened because I should by all rights not be a band anymore, and I was ready to go. I was going to quit music. I wasn't going to do any of this anymore. I would have ridden off onto the sunset. And the next thing you would have heard of me is probably when I went ballistic and started taking out people in the street. I've got too much time on my hands, but yeah. So it's just fate. I don't know what caused it. It was a miracle. I'd like to say yes. Well, I'd spotted these people and I had this all planned out. None of it was planned. It just fucking happened. I will say though, by going to gigs, going back to our point several hours ago now, probably about supporting the scene. I've always been able to replace people in the band because I've watched other bands. So I've seen how people play and I've gone, that person's good, that person's good. Obviously, I've not stolen anyone from anyone's band. I don't do that. But when you
keep like a mental note of like, oh, that guy's good when he's available.
That's somebody I'd like to play with, yeah. And so by going to gigs, you have a new handle on a very good handle on who can play in front of a crowd, who's a good person, personality-wise, again, because I don't want to be in a band with some fucking drug addicts. I just don't want to deal with that shit. There are bands
that you don't need to do. Same as with someone who's an alcoholic, as an example. You don't want them to fall off the arse while you're playing.
We going back to before Kaine, I was in bands with people who were drug addicts and alcoholics and the other stuff, and it never got anywhere because there was too many problems. We had one guy turn up to one band practice. He'd been beaten the crap out of by his drug dealer, and he couldn't play for shit. And he's like, and there was always an excuse why he couldn't do band practice, and because he's buying drugs or fucking too strung out. Completely useless. And a lot of these people think, oh well, that's the cool thing to do, go and do a load of fucking drugs, and then that's how it works. But then you play like shit, you sound like shit. No one wants to watch you. It's not the 80s anymore. You can't hide that shit in 2021.
Everyone's got a phone. Everyone can record you. And on top of that, this is my biggest pet peeve when it comes to anything art related. For some reason, anyone that does anything art related is shit at communication. Like just automatically, almost everyone who does anything art related doesn't know how to send an email or how to send a Facebook or a text message. There's far too many people like that, and I find that incredible. It's so easy. The access to it is right in front of you. You don't have the excuse. You don't really have the excuse of, oh, my phone died, or oh, this happens. No, there's like very few situations where you can say, oh, I was an emergency. Like unless it's something like, oh, it was an emergency. I had literally no time to get back to you guys. It's fine. Rather than, oh, I've overslept. Like you could have just literally texted me saying, oh, you've overslept. That's not difficult. Like just simple shit like that, which I find.
We had people like that before. Yeah, we had someone who was meant to go to band practice and was still sleeping in the middle of the day at the point that we were about to leave for band practice, and we went around to collect him. We dragged him out of bed. He didn't last very long in the band because it was always something with him. But that's typical, we have a group chat on Facebook, and we're always communicating through there. So we always, if someone can't do something, and they go,
what's that guy who overslept, the drummer that someone in the chat's asking?
No,
because it's like, you just said in the chat, like, sounds like a drummer to me.
No, it wasn't. It was a guitar player who'd done this. He was somebody who there was always a problem. Yeah. And he wasn't like an alcoholic or a drug addict. He was just, that was just the way he was. He wasn't serious about it. He thought the band thing would be, I join a band and then suddenly that's it, you're famous sort of thing. But then there was work involved, so he was less interested, didn't practice, got worse at what he was doing, and then ended up, in effect, being relieved of his duties because he wouldn't commit to gigs. Well, you say like that, actually, it was the day of a gig that he tells me that I can't do it. And I said, we're out the fucking band then. Because we've had this plan for months. And it was James Balcom who was the promoter. And he, at that time, he was one of the few people even booking us. So I'm like, well, no, you're basically telling the promoter to fuck you. I'm more important. So no, you're out because we can't have that. It's the way it is.
Yeah, no, I've experienced that more times than I want to. Not a whole lot of times, but there was one that I did with band that I had previously, and we were supposed to play in Harlow, not Harlow, somewhere down south near Brighton, I think. And
Right.
one of the members just doesn't come back to me, like just doesn't come back to me in any capacity. I'm like, what the fuck's happening? So I'm like, okay, we could still play the songs. They're not released. People don't know what they sound like. We could get away with just doing that. Rest of the band, like, no, we don't want to play without that person. Like, okay. No, it's me who organised with these guys. It's me who's getting fucked over here, not you guys.
Yeah.
Me. I'm the one that's pushing this. I'm doing that, so on and so forth. So I messaged guys. I'm really sorry. They don't want to play. There's no way for me to get down there. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to play. That day, I was like, fuck it. I'm not playing with you guys anymore. I'm not doing this kind of shit. So that's humiliating. It's fucking horrible, and it's not fair to the promoter in any capacity.
No. And that destroys your reputation straight away. And it's very hard to get back that type of reputation once you've got a reputation as a band that quits on gig day. That's it. And if you're a musician in one of those bands, then you can probably forget about doing anything else at that stage because nobody's going to book you.
Exactly.
So yeah, always treat promoters with respect. If you commit to a gig, play the fucking gig. Even if I've been so unwell sometimes that I've literally been propped up to play. I've been had the worst flu. I don't remember. Maybe this is probably about 10 years ago now. Maybe less, so 8 or 9. There was a big, disgusting winter flu going around, and we played a gig, and I had to literally be propped up so I could just play. I finished the set. I was cold and sweating at the same time. I was so unwell, but I committed to doing the gig. I'd said, I'm playing the gig. I'll be there. One weekend, we set out on the Friday. We had 2 gigs that weekend. One was in London on the Friday night, and then Sunday was Clacton. Saturday night was Clacton, rather. So what had happened on the way down to London, the bassist who I was traveling with, his van decided to give up the ghost on the way there. So rather than get the recovery vehicle home, which is what some people would have done, we had the recovery vehicle take us to the venue. And we said, we just fucking worry about it after we play. At the gig, I talked to a number of people. I talked to one of the band managers. I talked to of the other band that is, and he immediately gets us in touch with a mechanic. And he says, we can have this van fixed, but it'll take it away and do that. He says, I've got a spare van that you can borrow. Brilliant. So we've gone to the gig, played a gig, got another van. We stayed at his house for the night, and then rid his van back up to Essex in the morning. Another problem hits. A tyre explodes on this van.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So we had to drive into a service station and try and replace the tyre. The second tyre explodes as we're pumping it up. So we've now got no spare tyres. We then have to call Green Flag out to come and replace the tyre for us. So we were there for like 4 hours waiting around, and they turned up. And bearing in mind, we're meant to be in Clacton. We're near Stansted, which is a long way away from Clacton.
Yeah.
Despite being in the same county. So we then have the Green Flag man, turns up, repairs the tyre, we're off on our way. We literally get there in time for the doors of the gig. We unload, we unpack, and we fucking play the gig. Oh. We said we were going to be at both those gigs that weekend, and we went through hell and high water to get there. Would we rather have gone home? Probably. But we committed to playing 2 gigs. And that's what you fucking do. If you commit to it, do it. If you don't want to do that, you don't want to live a life like that, you don't want to live like a wanderer out of your bag, then don't do bands, because that's your weekend. Friday night to Sunday, you're working. You don't get a break. You go work all week, and then Friday night to Sunday, you go on the road and you do whatever you need to do. Expect your commitments. And if you don't want to do it, then it isn't fun sometimes. I'll admit that. I've slept in some dodgy places. I've eaten some terrible food, and I've met some terrible human beings. But I've chosen to live the life of a musician, and that's what you do.
It's because, as you said, music is a cathartic thing for you. It is your way of expressing yourself as a person. That is that is how you function as a human being. Like for another person, it might be photography. For another person, it might be doing puzzles. But personally, I think being a musician is more interesting than doing puzzles on the weekend. It's completely up to you if that's what you like. But that's how you function as a person. It's not something that necessarily needs to be explained per se. It's just simply how you are and how you tick.
It's a weird lifestyle choice, especially when you get to that. When you're off the ground like we kind of are, and you have, a number of gigs on the weekend, and you have to do a number of horrible things or whatever else just to sustain yourself and survive. It's interesting. I've got a lot of stories that I wouldn't have if I hadn't done it. I'd have led a very boring life had I just sat at home, probably wealthier.
You say monetarily wealthy, but not life
experience. Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been wealthy on life, so to speak.
What I would say to any band is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. This band pays for itself now. It doesn't lose me tons and tons of money. Something might not sell immediately, but there's a degree of time that ticks.
And then you put it on eBay and sell it for 10 times the price. I was listening to the Kaine podcast, the Kainecast podcast this morning, and as you were saying on the some people have taken CDs and vinyls and just sold them for like hundreds and hundreds of pounds because they're not available anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fair enough. If I'm not printing them and they've got them, they spent the money on them, by all means, especially if they're signed or whatever. But it's things like that. We don't lose money anymore, and for a band our size, that's something to say, be proud of. We don't lose money. We might lose a little bit of petrol on a gig or rehearsal or whatever else, but broadly speaking, the albums pay for themselves, the t-shirts pay for themselves. We've almost got like things like the rehearsals covered. We lose a little bit here and there on things, but then we gain it back. So it's like it's not costing me through the nose to do this.
But you've gone from loss to breaking even. So to speak.
Yeah, the album's profit.
It's like, as they say with any business, there's a certain amount of time where you're just losing money, then you break even for a bit, and then after a while, that's when you make profit. And to be honest, you guys have gone from strength to strength. I mean, as upsetting as going through all these different band members, all these different experiences it's been character building, and it's turned you into the person that you are today, which has given you the right experience to push the band that you've worked on for so long to make it into something.
Well, I'm proud to say that the only album we've now lost money on is the debut album. Every other album, the Waystone, it sold phenomenally. It's sold so many copies, and it sold out so many different times. Crisis of Faith has broken more than broken even. And when I told, because obviously the way, as you probably well know from me, I'm not somebody who takes the lion's share of the money from anything I do. I'm not about making money from stuff, which might sound insane, but I'm just not that way inclined. So all of the albums that my previous members on get an equal share of the split as I do. Obviously after everything's been paid for, so like the recording and printing and whatever else. So any of the gross or profit, if you want to call it, that's then available is then split between the four, on the cases of a couple, for the 5 people who are on the CDs or the albums. And when I was able to report back to the guys who were on the Waystone that actually you've made money out of this album, they were surprised. So much so that because we had like a transitional period, we were a 4-piece, and Saxon jumped on, and we were a 5-piece with 3 guitar players. And so he did a lot of the work and touring with that album. We decided that it would give him a share of that money as well, because we had enough of it. And it's paid, any existing debts they might have owed, because I've helped them out buying gear or, vans or whatever else in the past. Because, I'm kind of like, I'm the band manager as well as the front man. So the money coming in and out, if somebody needs a new this or a new that, and it's for the band, and I've got it in surplus, I will, invest that in whatever they need for the time being, to help them out, and then we'll worry about it later in terms of how it's paid back. and so they were surprised about the fact they'd not lost money on this stuff. And Chris, who'd been on both the Waystone and the Crisis of Faith, he's done okay out of it because he'd stuck through it twice over. So yeah, it's one of those things you just have to stick at, and you have to accept that the first album's probably not going to make a whole lot of money, and you're initially going to make a loss. But then, if you keep working, keep connecting, and just keep up, the sales will come in. And I can say I've sold thousands of albums, not millions, but I've sold thousands. Which for some guy from Essex who no one fucking knows, that ain't too bad.
That's great though. Again, like it's in. Without being too much of a bum lick, it's inspirational. It genuinely is. It's nice to see that. This is something that I raised a few times, which is what I find frustrating with a lot of bands is a lot of them will be like, "Oh, I'm never going to make a living off this. I'm not going to do that. Blah blah blah." But there's no point in even trying. It's like, but you're not even fucking trying. Like I can see you've got this potential. You've got all this shit that you could go down your way. You're just not trying because you think it's not going to be worth it. And I find that such a shame. It's such a shame of waste of potential. Like you're very like to me, I find you're very refreshing. Sense of you're not thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be Mr. Rockstar. I'm gonna make millions. I'm gonna snort coke off tits, whatever. But you have a very realistic goal, and uh, you've done you've done quite well. You've done well with the thing that you've wanted to create with quite like minimal like label back or anything like that. You've done it off of your own back, so to speak. And I find that fantastic because you're not disillusioned, but you're also not thinking like, oh, it's not going to be worth it. Oh my god.
No, it's. But if anyone ever wants my advice or help, what works for us might not work for you. But please just drop me a line. I'm more than happy to help anyone out. I don't have a competitive mindset. My view is if everyone's doing well and there's loads of people coming out to gigs, there's more revenue in it for all of us. The more live music, particularly in rock and metal, whichever guys it is, the more people coming out on a regular basis, spending money at venues and on merchandise, it benefits every one of us. So if you want a helping hand and anyone says, oh, I can't work this out, or why is this not working? And I gave some advice to the band Brazen Bull a couple of months back about labels and whatever else and how to sort of promote themselves. And they've done reasonably well recently. And I'm happy to, if it's free, I'm not charging anything. I'm not saying I'm going to take a huge amount of money for this stuff. I'm simply happy to help. And the more that we can do that type of thing for each other, and there are other people out there, if you want to speak to them, they'll give you their advice. I said it might not always work for you, but what's worked for us is being absolutely painfully clear about what it is we are. We're a heavy metal band. We sound like Iron Maiden, Metallica, Judas Priest, blah, blah, blah. Painfully obvious. We look how we sound. And I know you don't have this problem because I think you've got that nailed on as well. You look how you sound, and therefore the people aren't surprised that, they get the aesthetic. Look how you sound, keep it clear as day as what you are, and then just do things professionally and don't get into rows on the internet.
Yeah.
3 very basic pieces of advice. And fucking rehearse as well. I know I say that after I've admitted I haven't played guitar for a month or so. But I mean, when you're in rehearsal mode, rehearse. Go home, play the songs, learn your shit. Be good at
it. now you see, when it comes to rehearsals, because we're electronic based and our drummer does use a click track, every member just simply gets everything with the stems, like guitars, bass, etc. Because to us, like the song's right there, you know exactly how to play it. You can just rehearse like that. We'll rehearse it for sake of okay, we need to make sure that we're not shoving guitars up each other's asses by accident. And then there's that. But no, I completely and utterly agree with you with that. Again, completely refreshing. It's nice, actually. It's a nice change of pace. It's you need to look the way you sound. yeah, when people see you at a gig, they're looking at you as well. They're not just listening to you; they're watching you. So don't dress like a piece of shit unless you know your music
That's what
is
you are.
actually shit. Yeah, unless your music is themed on being a genuine piece of shit. Don't dress like a
Yeah,
piece of shit.
yeah.
It's so some of it is so simple, but a lot of it is just ego. It's like, oh, I want to be like this. Like, I want to be like Steven Tyler. You're not Steven Tyler. You sound shit all like Steven Tyler. You have a receding hairline. You cannot afford a Botox like he does. You're
Yeah.
not Steven Tyler. You are Steve from Norwich.
Steve from Norwich now.
I don't know.
So we've had
I'm just
Phil from
throwing
Blackburn and
random. I
Steve from
don't
Norwich.
know. There's probably a Steve in Norwich. There must be.
There is, yeah. He's a nice guy, actually. I know Steve from Norwich very well. It is quite simple, really. But if anyone wants any advice on anything, I'll try and do my best to advise them as best as I can. And hook up with other bands in your area. Talk. You'll have similar interests. You know, you'll be able to have a conversation. Go to their gig. It might be fun. In fact, before the last gig I went to before the world ended was Kalina Pearl,
Oh yeah.
Osman Guillotine, and Dismanibus, Coda in Colchester. Myself, Liam, and Toby went along to that, and it was a really good night. And then we played on the Friday. We played in Colchester with Ethereal Sin rather. Ethereal Fire was a local band. Ethereal Sin, which were a band from Japan, and then Skiltron, a band from South America. And then on the Saturday, we then played Burfest, which was headlined by Blaze Bailey at the Dome in London, and that was sold out.
Wasn't Osman Guillotine in that as well, or am I mistaken?
No, I think they played the year before. Burfest the year before, but yeah, we played that, and it was a good way to go out. It's like, yeah, we're in front of fucking thousands of people. We're fucking, yeah, and it's like, you know, if you see my current cover photo on Facebook, that's where that's from. So if it's not a bad gig to end your career on, if I never get to play a game,
Like as you said with the advice thing, that you know, genuinely seriously appreciate that, me and anyone that's listening. It's like because I thought like there's something I'm doing wrong. That I'm clearly not doing certain things right. So I actually bought some, you know, 2 books on you know, how to make in the music industry, etc. Of course, their titles to clickbait you a little bit. Thought, okay, fair enough. Read through most of it and thought it's not bullshit, but it's outdated. That a person is talking about their own experience, but there's no way what they're doing will necessarily work for what I'm doing. And again, most of these books are written by Americans. Their entire scene is completely different to ours. Like you can drive around that country for 10 quid.
yeah,
And that's it. You can literally just go in the back of a van, drive around, done. Sorted. You can make a living from that country alone.
Well, if you really want to cheat in this country, and there are ways to cheat in this country, you've got to have fucking deep pockets.
Yeah.
Because you got money, you can buy any festival slot you want. I'm not talking about the headliner ones, but you can get on the festival if you want. If you pay the promoter money, they will put you on.
Oh yeah.
You can pay for the opening slots of any big band that come to London, and you can try and do it that way, and it works for some. But you have to have deep pockets to do it. And someone might say, "Oh, you need to sell X amount of tickets." So what you do is you buy the tickets, hand them out to your friends, and then pray that they don't realise that's what you've done.
Cool.
But it happens. I mean, pay to play is a big thing, but you can buy reviews in magazines. You can have an arrangement saying, if I spend X amount of advertising revenue with you, will you talk about my band and give us good reviews? There is that method. My old band manager was all over that method. He was trying to get us to do it. And obviously, I'm not that way inclined. But you can do it that way. That is the cheap way of doing it, but it doesn't guarantee anything. You could easily piss 30,000, 40,000 pounds away, as others have done.
Oh yeah.
You know, playing the big festivals, getting those big support slots, playing with some of the big. I'm talking about the proper, real deal big names.
I'm well aware of those. It's like, was it like 3-4 grand just for the support slot?
Well, I can tell you, we were asked to support. It was Udo and Anvil on their European tour. a couple of years. Well, it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and the company that was putting together the tour said, "Oh, we'd love you to open." Fantastic! I'll just get it all booked in. So I got it all booked in. Spoke to the guys. We're all good for it. We're going to look into sort of hiring a van. It's all unpaid, but we're like, well, it's playing with these bands. It's fucking brilliant. And it's like, oh yeah, but we need you to pay 30,000 euros. So we're going to play each gig as openers with no access to a tour bus. We're going to have to pay for our own travel, pay for our own food, pay for our own hotel, and pay you 30 grand for the privilege. No,
it's literally just a golden ticket for you to open for them, essentially.
Well, what it is, these companies, and it's a detriment to the bands that work with them, because they go, "Oh, we booked these bands, the tickets aren't selling well. We'll get some fucking mug band to pay in the extra money," because you're covering their fucking loss. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it was like, I want to say something like 15 to 20 for Ripper Owens we were asked to do. This was years and years ago as well. Yeah. The ex-Judas Priest singer, ex-Iced Earth singer.
I actually went to see him during that tour, yeah.
So we were asked to pay, but there's nothing, you don't get anything else with that. That is what you pay for, and then you've got to find your hotel. So you know, I'm not a man of money. You can see where I'm living right now. It's a fucking shithole. I don't have money. So I can't do that. But if you do have deep pockets and you can afford to pay those sort of prices, you can buy endorsements. You can buy anything you want if you've got the money. That is the cheap way of doing it. But if you don't want to do it that way and you don't have money, then I'm probably somebody you might want to talk to.
But there's the thing. I think you've got two main options. You've got money or you've got connection.
Yeah.
And I'm not so like, oh, my dad knows Robert Plant and he's going to do this. I mean genuine connections with people. Like, oh, I'd say, as an example, I'm friends with this tech guy from this guitar company. So I get on with him well. He's, he gets along well with his boss. He recommends me to the boss, and that's how I got my endorsement, etc., etc. Like that kind of stuff. If you don't have those kinds of deep pockets, which, as you said, not everyone's got that. I certainly haven't fucking got that. Yeah. Most people don't. I'm not Chris Martin.
No, it's a hard industry in that respect. But you can, on my level or our level, whatever you want to call it, you can make it sustainable. If that's what you want to do in your spare time, you want to play some music, get some good opportunities, meet some great people, have some hilarious experiences. I can help.
If there's a will, there's a way, as they say. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't take into consideration. Which, it is hard. It is difficult. But the thing that I find not hilarious, is when people have, when they've got like family commitments, where it's like, oh, I've got kids, I can't do this anymore, or I've got that, I can't do that anymore. So you can. You just need to schedule it. You need to find a way to schedule around that. I know plenty of people who've got kids who do the band thing, and they're perfect. Like, they have a good balance. It's just learning how to balance it.
Well, a good piece of advice I actually saw on it's actually a War Games YouTube channel, because I played War Games and it's a bit nerdy and whatever else, but a lot of people, they get into these things and then suddenly don't have time for it. And then, his point was, do you watch TV or film? And they go, well, yeah. Well, then that's your hobby.
Yeah.
If that's what you choose to do with your time, that's fine, and that's absolutely fine. But everyone's interest takes up a lot of time, and if you find yourself with time and what you're choosing to do is either watch TV or do something else, and not the thing, whether it's music or your war game or whatever, or some people might want to play computer games in their spare time, then you choose that over your music, then that is probably your hobby and not the music, which is fine. But just be honest with yourself.
Yeah, don't make excuses like, oh, I haven't got time. You do. You just decide to use that time something else. Like, I use myself as an example with Twitch. I did a lot of gaming on it at first. Now I primarily do Rocksmith as guitar practice. Because I want you to play Powerwolf. Great. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen this chord progression before, or whatever. or I haven't played like this. Great, I'm learning something. My personal hobby is being productive. So yeah, I might be playing video games, but I'm still talking to people. I'm interacting with people and doing some like with Twitch, like just now with the podcast. It's still it's interact. It's having an interview with you, and it's promoting it on a different manner. I'm realising I'm not making the best argument here because I've
No, I
just
know what
realised
you're
that like
saying.
the way I'm wording it is just really poor.
I mean, I'm the way I am myself is I have a ton of different interests. Music is the primary one. I play games, not hugely. I'm a casual gamer.
Yeah.
I'll play a bit of Battlefield or whatever with my mates, but I don't when I was younger. I would play games through and whatever else. But now I'm older. I don't have the time to do that. I'll play and paint a few war games, armies up. I'll play football. I'll watch football. But music is the main thing. So I put that first and foremost. So much so that it's had detrimental effects on my personal life. Where I put the band first over several things. I missed. I was the best man at a mate's wedding. I've been that a couple of times now, but different weddings, not the same. He's not got divorced to be mad. So and I had to. We had something on. I forget what it was, but I had to miss the dress rehearsal of the wedding in that case. So on the day, I'm winging it big time, and the end result was the best man speech was a disaster and whatever else. But there we go. That's what happens when you try and juggle these things. And I have to put music first all the time because that's ultimately what I want to do. So I don't not somebody who watches a whole lot of TV anyway. I did do some wrestling training and a little bit of wrestling at one point, and the band got in the way of that ultimately because I wasn't able to train as regularly. And although I work out, I'm pretty fit and healthy. What's wrong?
It's hailing.
Is it there yet?
Yeah, it's here now. Oh wow, we're actually getting some form of snow. My European heart cries.
So you'll be deported back there soon anyway. I've read the internet. Yes. I know what's happening.
Yes, I am that filthy foreigner that's going to be sent back to his own country, going back to my own town.
Yeah, but your own country's not in the EU anyway.
No, we've got special privileges. We've got the privileges that you guys wanted, but the EU was like, no, there's too much fucking paperwork. You're not getting the same thing.
Yeah,
we're not getting another person to do this.
We're not playing with you now because you were mean to us. There was one thing that I had to laugh at. I think I read it in the Guardian or something. It's like, EU to get tough on tax havens. And the two tax havens that they're getting tough on are British overseas territories. It's like, I wonder why they suddenly noticed these two that have been about. It's like the Virgin Islands or whatever. It's like, I wonder why you've suddenly noticed Bermuda and the Virgin Islands. For years, they hadn't noticed it when we were in the EU, but the minute we come out of it, suddenly they're a problem. It's like, I think you've got a little bit of a grump on, haven't you? It's okay, it's fine. These things happen with relationship splits. But that did make me laugh a lot. It's like, this wasn't an issue until now. It's like, well, it is an issue. People don't really like tax havens in this day and age. We recognise that that's a naughty thing to do. As a society, we don't like it. Pay your fucking tax. But it's funny how they only choose to notice these tax havens as soon as we'd left the European Union. It's like, I wonder why that is. It doesn't take a genius to work out, does it?
It does make me giggle. I'm genuinely interested to see what will happen. Like we see some of the results, but a lot of it is in a weird, bizarre interim at the moment because you're getting all the speculation from the papers, and then people are saying, like, "What? This is happening? What do you mean? There's not going to be a freedom of movement?" Like, yeah,
it was well advertised during. It was well advertised during the campaign. I mean, I'm not going to say which way I voted, but I'd read a lot of documents before I did vote on it, and I made the decision based on I think it was the 5 presidents report by the EU, which actually made me choose the way I voted. But all of this stuff was pretty much laid out, so you shouldn't be surprised by it. But we sell stuff for the European Union still as a band, and I've just adjusted everything we do the way it's meant to be done, and I've had no problems with it. If you're someone who is not keeping up with the news and not adjusting what you're doing, I understand if you're buying from Europe, there might be a problem, or selling to, there might be a few problems, but you just have to adjust your costs. So there will be teething problems with this, but ultimately the world moves on. And as somebody who's 35 now, I've seen a load of these allegedly world-changing events that are meant to, end the world. We've had two in recent years, but things move on, and the world continues. So,
as they say.
I've seen so many different governments and different who's come in and out, promising the world, and nothing ever changes there either. The world moves on. You just have to roll with it. It's fine. You're powerless ultimately.
Oh no, I completely agree with that. The idea of having any choice, or well, not choice, but having a voice as such, is in and of itself very much an illusion to make you feel like you're important.
50% of people will vote one way and 50% of people vote the other way. That's generally how it happens. And a few people in the middle make the decision ultimately, because on the day they go, I'm going to vote for this thing.
It's like, I saw a pigeon. I'm going to vote for this person now. It's an omen.
Some people like that. People, you're at the mercy of that group of people who change their mind on the day a lot of the time.
It's like, I don't like Labour. I don't like Tory. I'm just going to vote for the Green Party.
Yeah, well, some people might well make that choice, and good luck to anyone who votes for anything. But yeah, it's difficult. But so don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. It's like
hey, I've got a Swiss passport. I can probably wiggle my way around Europe if needed.
Yeah,
I have no idea how it fucking works. I've not looked into anything like that, because looking at it, I'm not at that level to do anything like that. Not yet, anyway.
Well, visas for work aren't particularly complicated. EU ones have never been particularly complicated. It was always, you get into the United States is hard work, but working in the EU isn't. If you're just from a career standpoint, if you're good enough, they'll hire you. They'll sort the visa stuff out. If you're good enough, you'll get a job there. So even though we don't have immediate right to settle there, once a lot of those countries, once you have a job there, you'll be able to settle there anyway, in the same way that somebody's able to come from India to live here, and if they're a doctor and they've got proven income and a place of residency, that they're allowed to stay. They're not denied that entry just because they're not in the EU. And it'll be the same way with British people who want to work in Europe and people in Europe, or I say Europe, the EU, because not all of Europe is in the EU, vice versa, and it will all iron itself out in the end. I'm not one of these people that's getting into too particular panic about it, because I have no intention to live and work in Europe anyway. So it's not something that's ever crossed my mind. I'm not of that. I haven't been to university. I have no skills that they could possibly want, unless they want someone to reset their Windows or whatever. I'm not really a guy that they fucking need. So I'll stay here. I'll stay back to where I come from, please. With all the other inbreds. So yeah, I would say, because I've seen a lot of panic about that, just chill out on it. It'll be fine. The musicians will.
Oh yeah, no, I'm well aware. Anything that you see in the media, anything from newspapers, well, like we said earlier with the fucking Woolworths thing.
Yeah.
Just wait and see what happens.
Just fake news. It's like, why would they resurrect a dead brand? Just like, why? They wouldn't. It wasn't worth any money when they finished it. It's like, why would they resurrect it in the pandemic?
An online store, though. I'm sure that I do remember seeing some kind of talk about it.
Yeah, someone owns the name and uses it like that, as opposed to as a storefront.
Yeah, no, there is Woolworths.co.za.
ZA.
I think that's New Zealand, isn't it?
ZA? Was it Zimbabwe or?
I have no idea.
Because I think .nz is New Zealand. If you found some sort of knockoff Woolworths in
I might have done
Central Africa or somewhere like that.
Company. Yeah, so it's retail. Yeah, so it is definitely Woolworths. Where is?
They're in one of those tax havens, aren't they?
Virgin Isles, must be.
Yeah, they're in one of those tax havens.
Where is ZA? South Africa.
There you go.
That doesn't surprise me that much. I feel like it should, but it doesn't. Because South Africa's quite. It's got quite a close relationship with the UK, really, when you think about it.
Well, in that it was a part of the British Empire originally, and yeah, after we stole most of it from the Dutch. Yeah.
Oh, I think I've got lots of Dutch people in my chat actually. I don't know what
Well, they should know.
happened.
They know about that. You know, England and Holland have had our disagreements over the years. It's happened. We've moved on. It's fine.
It's the French that we still got the arseache with for some reason.
Well, yeah, our relationship with France has been
It's never been
interesting. But
good.
then again, we're right next to each other. It's like we're going to end up, especially back in the day, in conflict. And you had kings saying, "I'm the rightful king of France," and then they go, "No, I'm the rightful king of England," and it all kicking off. You know.
Oh, there's what I find really interesting with the French actually is because we're always saying like, oh, if our government's going to fuck up, we're going to do this and this to Parliament, etc., etc. Like, I don't think we ever would, to be honest. I think we become quite docile as a country. Then you've got France, where you've got the president blinks in a way they don't like, riot,
It's right.
fucking burn everything down.
Yeah.
It's like fuck you guys. Like they're
Yeah.
savage. They're savage.
We're
Fuck.
Well, we had a revolutionary period, obviously, when Oliver Cromwell won the back-to-back civil wars and then chopped the king's head off. The problem is it left such a power vacuum once he died that we just went, oh, we'll just have the king back because it's easier that way than managing it the way. Because obviously democracy was just an alien thing to people back then. So we had that period, and you could argue that part of that extension of that was the American Revolution as well. They had a similar thing where they decided that they weren't going to be taxed by a foreign king and not have representation in Parliament. It happens, you know. And the French have obviously had their revolution, which was inspired by the Dutch. So getting into history lessons now, I'm going to stop because I've read a lot of stuff.
Have you? Honestly, one thing I've definitely gone into during lockdown is alternate history. Alternate history is fucking incredible.
Alternate history.
Yeah, it's. Have you ever seen
Fake news history?
So alternate history is basically just it's a thought exercise of, say, you take one event and say you've changed one slight thing. So as an example, one of them was Alaska was for sale at one point because the Americans believed it wasn't worth anything. So the Russians almost bought it. There was some kind of reason why they didn't. So the argument is then that if Russia did buy Alaska, it would become almost like its own state. If it makes sense. So like while you've got
Well, Alaska was originally owned by Russia. It was the Americans who bought Alaska from Russia. The argument there was if can you think about geographically, had Russia then evolved into the Soviet Union and then had that huge chunk of land in North America. I know they're right next to it, right across anyway.
Yeah.
They could potentially have invaded Canada and then subsequently the United States from that territory. Would have been particularly easy because obviously Alaska's not, and the north of Canada, and that's not easy to get around anyway.
Plus, there's not a lot of resource there either. A lot of it's just ice, isn't it?
Well, it's the oil that's worth stuff. I mean, I never understood why the British Empire didn't buy it, really, because it's right next to Canada. You'd think, well, just take that last little bit. But maybe we took it as, well, we don't want to be on the doorstep of Russia, so we allow the United States to buy Alaska. Then there's that buffer zone between Canada, and they've got to go through the United States to get to us, so it kind of makes it a bit more complicated. Maybe that's why we didn't buy it, but I never understood why Britain didn't buy Alaska.
So that's when where the thought exercise actually diverges, where either during the Civil War, etc., the Russians would then, during the communism, try and invade Canada, or while the Civil War's going on, Alaskan Russians would be their own country because they would separate themselves completely, or they would still be royalists.
Recognise the monarchy or whatever else. Yeah, White Russians in effect.
Exactly. So yeah, that's like the Man in the High Tower. That's alternate history.
Right, I've never seen that. So
it's it's there's like a few YouTube channels. Like how much of it is right or wrong, whether it's interesting. I find so anyway. I think it's quite cool to see, like, oh, so this could have possibly happened or that could have happened, Or like, oh, what if most of Europe was Muslim rather than Christian, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Or if, I mean, there's been loads of different times. I think we're going to go right down a deep rabbit hole here, but obviously, Islam could have spread into Europe like Christianity did, both aggressively and passively. And we could have all been converted to Islam as opposed to Christianity from the various pagan religions we had.
Yeah, because
Could have happened.
a lot of the spread of Christianity was very much due to the Romans and just roads that they built, because that would give you easy access to travel a lot faster than you would say through mud and just
Well,
just
what happened in Rome is obviously they had a very, prior to Christianity, the poor in mainland on the Italian peninsula, in Rome itself, they didn't have a great time if you were at the bottom of their society. Whereas one of the things that Christianity teaches is that all men and women are equal, and when you die, if you're a good person, you go to heaven. Doesn't matter how much money you have and whatever else. And that inspired the Christians to take hold of Roman society. Then the Romans got hold of it and thought, this is a very good idea. We can spread this right across our empire, and this will be the format of our state religion from now on. You have a Holy Roman Emperor who's ordained by the Pope, who's acting on behalf of God. And they went. I'm going back right through history again. I've read way too much, but I'm bite-sizing it and I'm missing stuff out. I'm doing it on purpose, but that's principally how Christianity spread through Europe to begin with. And how a lot of the original pagan religions obviously died out as a result of it, because people just gradually converted, because to be a Roman was seen as a status symbol, even amongst like the Germanic tribes, which obviously worship Wotan and Thor and all those gods. They served in the Roman army, and that's the reason. But the state, the Holy Roman Empire, is actually what is mostly modern Germany and Austria, and that was a Germanic state. It wasn't a Italian state at all. But because the prestige associated with being a Holy Roman Emperor, having this divine right behind you, became a big thing, and that's what fueled a lot of the thing with Christianity in Europe. It was the desire to be this part of something massive. And you had the Teutonic Crusades into Eastern Europe, Poland, Lithuania, and all those places, converting the Slavic tribes into Christianity. Obviously, Britain was a bit more complicated because the original Brittonic Celtic people had already been converted to Christianity, aside from Ireland and Scotland, which remained Celtic pagan. And then the Romans pulled out. Then you had the German people come in, which were the Anglo-Saxons, the Jutes, the Frisians, the Franks. They came in, established what would become England. They all worshipped the old gods, Wotan, basically, and all those people. And then they had to be then re-Christianized by the Irish and the Scots and everyone else. So it's just kind of a weird circle we've gone through. And then the Vikings, the Danes and the Norwegians then invade and bring back Odin and all those different gods into the equation, and they become Christian. It's just weird.
Britain just didn't know what he wanted to be at that point. It's like, but I'm a pagan, but I'm this, and I don't understand. Am I gay? I don't understand. Am I a furry? I don't get it.
Yeah, the Dark Age Britain is it's interesting. If nobody's read about it, it's an interesting period of time. So anyway, I've gone off completely.
No, that's completely fine. They touch on that on the show Vikings a little bit, which is somewhat interesting. Like Vikings is a long watch. Like that is a show that you really need to be like sit down and was like, okay, I'm gonna watch episode. I need to binge this several weekends just to get through it. But it's interesting how Europe has handled religion just as a general thing, because we've done so much of it. We've distorted it in so many different ways.
Well, it's become, you look at any variant of Christianity, whether it's the Greek Orthodox, the Church of England, Catholicism, Lutheranism is another one. Each culture, Russian Orthodox, puts its own, took its pagan traditions, modified it to work with the Christian traditions, and then added their own cultural twang on it. So every variant of Christianity is different from itself based on the culture which believes in it. And I suppose it's the same worldwide. You know, if you go to Africa, Jesus is depicted as a African, you know, sub-Saharan African. Whereas if you go to Italy, Jesus looks more like me than he does.
But that's the thing. Like Black Jesus makes more sense. Like just from where he was based.
Well, there's a lot of confusion about the Middle East because we look at who lives there now, but what you have to remember is the Arabs had moved into that after Jesus had been there. The Semitic people who lived there was a mixture of Greek people who'd invaded, and that's why they wrote and spoke Greek as a main language. And you obviously had the Italian or Latin people move in. So Jesus wouldn't have obviously been a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, looking super Nordic person. But there was also Celtic migrations into the Middle East as well. So, but we don't know what he looked like. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So the assumption that he was, you know, a sub-Saharan African or someone from, you know, Norway is wrong. But just how cultures adopt things, isn't it? They'll add their own twang to it, regardless of what it is. It will become unique to them eventually. It's interesting.
I mean, yeah, as you said, like with as you said, with Christianity, whichever country it is or land, so to speak, you have a certainly different coloured Jesus, which all comes down back to, you know, the tribal mindset that we have as creatures, where, you know, my leader has to be from my tribe. So,
well, you think about if you're from an isolated, certainly like if you go back to medieval Europe, or, you know, if you're from an isolated place, you'd never have seen anybody that didn't look like you.
Oh yeah,
you were related to everyone who lived in your town. So you probably weren't doing it out of, you know, we're the superior people, whatever else. It's just what you knew. So you painted the person that Jesus was a man. Oh, well, what does a man look like? Well, I'm a man. So you paint what you know and what you see around you. So I don't think there was anything sinister behind it. I mean, it
definitely didn't start off sinister, I think.
No.
But I think it did get distorted into something that
once we had imperialism.
To.
Yeah, once we had imperialism and all that sort of thing kicking off, then the view of the world changed as we started learning more about the rest of it. We won't go into that because that's a pretty hefty and controversial subject.
I mean, it's fear. It's fueled by fear. It's the same as with. I'm going to go completely off topic. Like H.P. Lovecraft, like the guy was a blatant racist. I mean, look at what he named his cat.
Yeah.
But when you get down to it, like the reason why his fearful stories are so well written and so imaginative is because that was him expressing his fear, right. which makes complete sense. I mean, yeah,
I've never read it myself, so
it's like it's a very distorted fear that he's had, but it's turned into quite an imaginative world that's clearly gone on inside of his head. That's really the only point I was trying to make with that, really.
Well, yeah, we're influenced by our environment, and it can influence our creativity if we're going to put it into the context of music. I certainly don't take influence from those subjects in my music. Before anyone accuses me of anything, but yeah, it's just interesting. We've gone well off topic.
Oh no, we definitely have, but yeah, we've actually hit the 2-hour mark. I think we need to start something up. Otherwise, people will see all the other podcasts and see this. Oh, this has gone on for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Am I going to risk listening to all of this?
Yeah. But if you got, constipation or something, it's something you could put on while you're straining your shit out. I mean.
But no, this has genuinely been, as you know, it has been a genuinely interesting conversation with you, and I'm glad that I've managed to get you back on. What are Kaine's plans for the near future, considering, without taking COVID into consideration?
Yeah, we need our microchip first before we can do anything else. But yeah, well, assuming that we're all good to rehearse, that'll be the first step. Once the people we need to be safe are safe, we'll go back to rehearsal. We'll rehearse the songs again, but we have to relearn a lot of it. and then we're going to book ourselves in the studio. We've got an EP on the go as well, which is half recorded, but again, same problem. We'll then record a new album, and it's a very different album to the last one. It's a lot faster and heavier, so I hope people enjoy it. And then as soon as we're allowed to start looking at booking gigs again, we're looking at booking gigs. So we'll be doing hopefully some good venues, and yeah, that's the plan.
Sweet. So thank you so much for coming on to the podcast once again. Thank
That's
you.
all right.
And yeah, everyone listening once the podcast comes out on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else you can listen to, buy Kaine stuff, buy all the Kaine music you can, all the merchandise, because this guy definitely deserves it. Buy my merchandise, I deserve it. But definitely Kaine merchandise. Definitely buy Kaine merchandise first.
Buy everyone's stuff, and then everyone wins.
Exactly. But
cheers for having me. It's been fun.
thank you so much. And yes, so thank everyone for joining me for a extra stream this week. And have a great day, and keep an eye out on socials for when this episode is out. Have a great time, everyone.